And actually, before we do any of that, I want to ZRemesh this to give us a new game res. Now, you don't have to ZRemesh. You can go over here. Let's grab our Z plugin menu here. And you can go down here to our decimation master. If you want a quick game res of this, you can pre-process current, decimate this down to whatever poly count you want. If you're going to throw it up on Sketchfab, you can decimate it down to like 10K and then bake out maps. Another option you can do is using ZRemesher. So we're going to take this mesh here. Now, when we ZRemesh, it's going to completely destroy this mesh. So first, we're going to duplicate this off. We're going to go here to Geometry, ZRemesher. Our target polygon count, let's go ahead and crank that up to 20. We'll go ahead and keep adaptive size at 50. The lower that is, the more quads you'll get, but the less it's going to take into account surface curvature. We don't have any polygroups, so we don't need to worry about that. We're not going to put any curves on here, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit ZRemesh. We don't have X turned on, so there's not going to be any symmetrical ZRemesh. And again, like I mentioned before, if you want more in-depth information on here, go to my YouTube channel, Intro to ZBrush Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. In fact, if we scroll down here, scroll here to our Lumi questions, and we open that up, and you scroll down, I actually do have a photogrammetry cleanup here, where I did a cleanup on a T-Rex head. So here's another version of this cleanup, if you want to see another photogrammetry object being Z-remeshed. But we're doing it here too as well. Let's go ahead and turn off live boolean. We don't need that on anymore. And here's our new ZRemesh. If it's too high density, what you can do is, first of all, let's turn off solo. I only need our ZRemesh mesh here, and then the one we want to project back to. I don't want to project back to our original because it has all this garbage geometry in here I don't want, but I do want to project back to our cleanup mesh. So with these two showing, I've got my ZRemesh selected. Again, this is our lower poly mesh here. And then I've got our new mesh here, or our cleaned up mesh here I want to project the detail back to. Go down here to the project menu here, hit project all, and that'll go ahead and project those details back to this object. Now the reason I did that before lowering this, and I do want to lower this a little bit, I'm going to go over here to ZRemesher, and you can just hit half. You can drop in a lower target polygon count if you want, but I'm going to go half and hit ZRemesher again. So again, I project back out to the original mesh, so when I Z-project or Z-remesh and it lowers the density of the mesh, it doesn't keep melting. It'll keep like averaging the vertices until it kind of loses its overall shape. I want to keep projecting back each time so it kind of bumps it back out to the original shape. So there we go. It's even lower. Now we're at 22,000 active points, so about 40,000 polygons here. So again, if you turn off solo, you're going to see both of these messages. You don't have to see both of them. You can have solo turned on. As long as they're both visible in this menu here, you can just hit project all, and it'll start projecting that detail back. And I think that'll be good. So I think that'll be okay to go ahead and UV. So if you want to, you can go over here to Z plugin, go to UV master. It's not symmetrical. We don't have any polygroups. You can unwrap. And once it's done unwrapping, you can hit flatten, and then it'll show your UVs. Now, it did have a little bit of trouble with our UV, so we can help it out. There's a couple different ways. Let's go ahead and hit unflatten. A couple of ways we can help this out. We can enable control painting. If you want to, you can attract by ambient occlusion, and that'll give it an ambient occlusion map that'll attract where it wants to cut through. And another thing you can do is give it polygroups. I think polygroups is going to be our best bet here. So let's go ahead and hold down control, go to mask lasso, and let's go ahead and lasso or mask select her head here. So we got most of her head selected. I'm going to hold down control. We'll go back into mask pin, and I guess we can turn off our polyframe as well. And I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to hold down control. I'm going to just clean up this mask a little bit. We're going to get rid of her hand. So I'm just going through, and where there might be a natural UV seam we can put in, or a natural seam in our mesh, we can go ahead and just mask this out. And wherever I'm masking is going to be a polygroup that UV master can then look at and use as a UV seam. So I'm going to just control where those UV seams go using polygroups. So now that we have that all masked out, hit Control W. Let's go ahead and turn on polyframe first. Hit Control W, and you're going to see we have a new polygroup here. So that'll all be UV'd together. Let's go ahead and grab this arm. I'm going to hold down Control Shift and grab this mesh here. And you can also polygroup with visibility if you want. So you can hold down Control Shift, grab your select lasso, and then hold down Control Shift and Alt. And we'll get rid of everything except for the arm geo we want. I mean, you can use masking as well. It's not a big deal. Use whatever method makes the most sense. I'm going to go ahead and just show you how to use visibility to create a polygroup as well. So now with just these polygons visible, you know what, it might give it a little bit of problem here. It's okay. Hit Control W, and that'll go ahead and make a polygroup for this arm. We'll go ahead and use the masking technique for this one. So I'm going to isolate this one. Hold down Control. We'll go ahead and mask lasso this arm out. And we'll go to this side and we'll unmask this area out here. And then again, go back in here with our mask pin. And we'll hold down Control Alt. And you know what? We'll keep the shoulder with our main part of our body. We'll just take the arm part here. Okay, you can hold down Control Alt and tap, and that'll sharpen your mask if you want to tighten that up just a little bit more. Hit Control W to make it a polygroup, and now you have her arms as separate polygroups, her head as a separate polygroup, and her body as a separate polygroup. Again, continue breaking this up as much as you want. If you want to break the rabbit out and her lower body and her upper body, feel free to do that. But for now, let's go ahead and see how well this is going to work. So what we're going to do is go over here. We'll turn on polygroups, so it uses our polygroups, and we'll go ahead and enable control painting and attract from ambient occlusion as well. So with both of those selected, we'll go ahead and hit unwrap. And then whenever that's done, go ahead and hit flatten. And here's our new UVs. These UVs look fine. If you want to go ahead and make changes to them, this is basically just like anything else in ZRemesh. You can treat these as geometry. You can just move them around with your move brush. Let's go ahead and turn off AccuCurve here. So you can move this stuff around. You can go through here. You can go to your masking menu. And you can say mask by features border. You can grow that mask. You can Control Tap to invert that mask. Or if you want to like smooth out the border, or you can go through here and go to your deformation menu. And you can say smooth or relax. And then I'll go ahead and relax the geometry that's not masked. If you want to move these shells around, you can hit W. And you can Control Tap any of these polygroups and then move them around independently. And then Control Drag to unmask. You can Control Tap any of these as well and scale them down or scale them up. Whatever you want to do. Again, there's more information on my YouTube channel about the ins and outs and intricacies of UV Master. But for now, this is fine for me. And really, it's just demonstrating how you can project polyscan textures to new UV sets and new geometry. So now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and hit unflatten. One thing I should have mentioned is when we went to UV Master, we probably should have gone over here to work on clone, done all that work, and then duplicated that UVs back onto our object. But we didn't, but that's okay. So we've got our object here. Now let's go ahead and get all of that geometry detail back onto our object. This isn't a necessary step. You can export this out as your game res if you want to, but if you want an actual, even more cleaned up photogrammetry mesh to bring back into Photoscan, this is one thing you can do. So let's go back here to Matcap Gray. We've got these two showing. So what I'm going to do, again, we're going to go over here to Subtool, Project All. And as long as these two have their eyeballs turned on, it's going to project to that mesh. I'm going to hit Control D, which is going to geometry subdivide this new object with new UVs. It's going to go ahead and give it more geometry. We're up to 88,000 now. I'm going to again hit Project All. I'm going to hit Control D to subdivide again, hit Project All. Control D to subdivide again. We're up to 1.45 million, hit Project All. And now if I'm in solo mode right now, but you're going to see as I switch between those, here's our original scan data, and here's our new mesh with UVs. You see there's very, very little difference, if any at all. I don't see any difference at all, actually. And the biggest difference here is if I take this U mesh that we've created, and we go down here to Texture Map, Create, New from UV Check, you're going to see there's our new fully realized object with all the detail back. It's cleaned up, and we have UVs on it that were UVs that we wanted. Now, again, feel free to UV this in whatever program you want. I use ZBrush because it's easy and it's right there, but you can UV this however you'd like. Let's go ahead and turn texture off, and let's go ahead and export this. We don't really want to export these polygroups as any sort of group, so you're going to want to go down here either to the export options, and you're going to want to turn this group off. Another thing you can do is just hit Control W to make it all one polygroup, and then it'll just export as one mesh. So let's go up here to export, and this is our original girl statue OBJ. We'll call this girl statue new OBJ and save that. And just to be safe, I don't really need that polypaint. I'm going to turn that polypaint button off. I'm not sure why it was on at all, and then we'll just export that again.